Right now at 6, sentenced to a lifetime behind bars as the family of a mother and her young daughter face the man who committed their murders.
It'll never amount to the pain and suffering that me and my family and loved ones have felt.
Plus, a monster hurricane expands as time to leave runs out.
A mandatory evacuation has been ordered. Please leave this area.
This is the triple threat that we have feared for decades and decades.
And later, it's the heart condition that disproportionately affects Black people.
Early diagnosis and early treatment can bring hope, where previously, the diagnosis was more grim.
How a local hospital is finding new room for optimism. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Mulco. We begin at 6 with life in prison. That is the sentence for a man who admitted to killing his ex-girlfriend and her 7-year-old daughter in Clark County last year. Kirkland Warren learning today he will not have a chance at parole. Let's bring in Blair Best live at the courthouse in Vancouver. Blair, an understandably difficult and emotional day in court for so many.
David, it really was a difficult sentencing to sit through as the friends and family of the victims filled the courtroom to watch the man who killed Michelle and Layla be sentenced to life in prison. The judge himself even pausing to acknowledge the pain and suffering felt inside that courtroom today. Kirkland Warren pleaded guilty last month, just a few days before his murder trial was set to begin. In the spring of 2023, 27-year-old Michelle Melendez and her 7-year-old daughter Layla Stewart were reported missing after they were last seen with Warren. 10 days later, police found their bodies in a rural area near Washougal. Both had been shot in the head. Court records also show Warren had sexually assaulted Layla before killing her. Today, family of the victims filled the courtroom sharing the pain they lived with this past year.
And I'm glad that he is getting a consequence, but it'll never amount to the pain and suffering that me and my family and loved ones have felt since this all started.
This has hurt me so much. I barely eat, sleep, nightmares, get depressed sometimes. I would watch Layla like almost every weekend, and when those weekends come back up, I don't get to see her anymore.
The judge also noted today that for aggravated murder, life in prison without the opportunity of parole was the maximum penalty he could give under Washington law. But today it was more than just a sentencing. It was an opportunity for these families to speak to the court and to give a voice to these victims. And the timing is also noteworthy, seeing that it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. David?
You can feel their raw pain in everything they have been through. Thank you, Blair.
You must leave. I'm not asking you to leave. I'm telling you, you must leave.
And you may be uncomfortable, but if you listen to us, you and your loved ones will be alive.
Well, very blunt, direct words from authorities in Florida as an extremely powerful Hurricane Milton takes aim at the Gulf Coast, in particular Tampa Bay. This afternoon, the storm regaining Category 5 strength with storm surge in some spots forecast to reach up to 15 feet. Evacuations are in effect in coastal zones and across much of the Tampa-St. Pete metro, home to millions with interstates gridlocked as folks make their way to safety. Those who aren't under mandatory orders, by the way, now being told to have enough supplies to last at least a week without power or water. Let's get right to Chief Meteorologist Matt Safino. So Matt, when does it sound like Florida will start feeling the effects of Milton?
They'll start feeling the impacts tomorrow, but there's a reason that emergency managers and the National Weather Service are using more intense, more forceful, if you will, language, because this is a deadly situation. They're trying to prevent loss of life and really drive the message home to people that, hey, this isn't something you'd ride out with a couple of margaritas. This is going to be a really, really bad situation. Here is the eye of the hurricane a couple hours ago. Very intense, very well organized. It actually weakened a little bit last night to a Category 4 as it went through what we call an eye wall replacement cycle. That's where the eye, which is very small, it was a pinhole eye yesterday, gets a little bit bigger because it sort of falls in on itself because it's so intense, then a new eye wall reforms. Oftentimes that weakens the storm. This weekend just a bit. Now it's strengthening again, back up to a Category 5. So yes, it went from a 5 to a 4 and back to a 5 today. The rain you see up here is a leftover frontal boundary, which is not great because that's going to interact with the hurricane as it approaches the coast of Florida and help to produce even more rainfall, and tornadoes will certainly be spun up with this as it makes landfall, and frictional effects of the land come into play there. So the winds sustained at 165. Pressure's back down to an amazingly low 902 millibars. It dropped 50 millibars in 10 hours yesterday. That's just ridiculous. Now, here's the path that it was on. This is its current location, headed towards the coast of Florida still. And it's interesting that the cone, the center of the cone, is still aimed right at Tampa Bay, which is an absolute worst case scenario if it goes in just to the north. That bay is shallow. It's shaped like a funnel. It's going to draw all the water up the bay. And that's why we're talking about 15-foot storm surge, which is basically not survivable there. Look at the rainfall totals here, now heavier on the East Coast, and these amounts are likely to be, or the actual amounts likely to be double what we saw there. Now, a lot of people ask me, why are we getting all these strong hurricanes like within a couple weeks of each other? Well, there's a climate change component to this. This is the ocean heat content, how much heat the ocean holds, right? And if you look at the track for 2024, it's tracking similar and even above last year's record amount. The average from 1991 to 2020, way down here. So we're way above average with the amount of heat that the ocean holds. That fuels hurricanes. That makes the extreme strong hurricanes and what we call extreme rapid intensification more likely. You can see that on the map. We're seeing way more of those in more recent years compared to in the past. And then finally, from our friends at Climate Central, this is the climate shift index for the ocean, showing that the change in likelihood of a strong storm because of the ocean heat content. You can see down here the deep reds are. That's 4, 5, even 10x times more likely because of all that extra heat the oceans are storing. David?
Yeah, appreciate you keeping it all in perspective for us. Thank you, Matt. In your headlines, the Portland mom whose toddler died of a suspected fentanyl overdose was arrested in Seaside this morning. 26-year-old Mary Jacobo has been on the run since first responders found her 2-year-old daughter unresponsive 3 weeks ago at a Northeast Portland mobile home park. Portland police say they believe she went on to carjack someone at gunpoint and to commit other violent crimes. Authorities say she had a gun on her when she was arrested. We're working to find out what charges she will be facing. In Vancouver, arson investigators are searching for the person who left a suspicious device on a ballot drop box. A caller reported seeing smoke from the drop box on 14th near the Clark County Elections Office around 4 a.m. The Metro Explosive Disposal Unit was able to safely remove it, though you can see it left a sizable burn mark near the drop slot. By the way, ballots have not yet gone out to Washington voters. They're set to be mailed late next week. And the Oregon Humane Society is looking for help finding a puppy that was stolen from their shelter on Northeast Columbia last night. Surveillance video shows the suspect opening the dog's cage, then grabbing her and walking out with the puppy under his shirt. 3 other people were initially with that suspect, though it is not clear what role they played, if any. The dog here, just 9 weeks old. She's a lab pit bull mix, about 10 pounds with a brown coat. Her name is Fireball. If you see her or know where she is, call the Humane Society or Portland Police. Right now, there's a $500 reward for information that leads to a conviction. We are learning more this evening about the federal trial of an Oregon man accused of kidnapping a woman, then locking her in a cinder block cell in his Klamath Falls garage. Investigative reporter Kyle Lavoshi joins with a preview with jury selection now underway. Kyle.
Well, the 3-week trial will be held in federal court in Medford. No cameras are allowed. According to our NBC station in Medford, a jury has been selected, and late this afternoon, both sides laid out their cases in opening statements. Federal prosecutors plan to present a mountain of evidence against Nagasi Zuberi during a 3-week trial in Medford. The Oregon man allegedly abducted a woman, then held her captive in a cinder block cell. Prosecutors have submitted a witness list of more than 70 people and more than 500 exhibits, including images of Zuberi buying pallets of cinder blocks at a local Home Depot, allegedly used to construct the makeshift cell in his garage. The 30-year-old has pleaded not guilty. The FBI claims in July of 2023, Zuberi posed as an undercover officer, kidnapping a woman from Seattle, then sexually assaulting her during the 450-mile drive to his home in Klamath Falls. The woman was able to escape the cell by beating on a metal screen door until her hands bled, according to the FBI.
The victim's focus actions and her will to survive triggered a law enforcement response that may have actually saved many other women from a similar nightmare.
A day after the alleged kidnapping, police tracked down Zuberi in a Walmart parking lot in Reno. The police body cam video of his arrest was heavily redacted. Federal prosecutors also linked Zuberi to a second kidnapping. In May of 2023, the 30-year-old allegedly abducted a woman outside a Klamath Falls bar, threatened her with a taser, handcuffed her in the back of his car, and then sexually assaulted her multiple times. In addition to kidnapping and being a felon in possession of guns and ammunition, Zuberi is also charged with attempted escape. Police photos show the plastic sandal with a screw attached that Zuberi allegedly used to try and break out of the Jackson County Jail while awaiting trial. It is not clear if Zuberi will testify on his own behalf or what witnesses, if any, the defense will call.
Kyle Laboshi with the update. Thank you, Kyle. Well, to our homeless crisis and an update from Portland City Council and Multnomah County, where officials held a joint meeting to outline their progress. There were a lot of numbers presented, though one of the big ones is that they've sheltered or housed nearly 7,000 people since the beginning of the year. That is well above the goal, though only 23% of adults are leaving shelters for permanent housing. That is below the goal. After the presentation, it got a bit heated, with outgoing Commissioner Sharon Myron blasting the county and encouraging the city to pull funding and exit what is called the Intergovernmental Agreement, or IGA.
Staying with the IGA isn't collaboration, it is collusion. It is not helping, it's aiding and abetting. So I hope you will not play into the PR campaign that we've seen with these multiple slides that tell us really essentially nothing, because when you go out, I don't think anyone here does actual outreach work, except for I do. You will see things are worsening.
By the way, the city set to take a look at the progress of that contract, some points in October. There have also been complaints about the county handing out tents and tarps to homeless people. So we understand a new policy is in the works and will go in front of the commission sometime in November. Straight ahead at 6, the new center that's aiming to give doctors the jump on detecting a rare heart condition that disproportionately impacts black people. And later in sports, meet the voice who'll be bringing you the big Oregon-Ohio State game this weekend right here on KGW and NBC. Plus, Pat Doris continuing his political ad fact checks, this time honing in on an ad against Democrat Janelle Bynum in a contentious race for Congress. It's coming up at 6:30 on The Story, only here on KGW.